Stacy Renee. I'm a mindset coach, a life coach, a life on life's terms coach. And tonight we're going to be talking about powerlessness and how powerlessness can help us to actually find our power. And what are our thoughts on powerlessness? Because most of the time, it's not the powerlessness itself that holds us back and keeps us in lack of what it is that we want. It's the not knowing how. It's not being able to understand what powerless is and what powerless is not, what we have power over and what we don't have power over. Many of us are spinning our wheels trying to have power over things that we have no power over, like this bird and it's plucking. I can't make this bird stop plucking. What I could do is get the birds some hormones, and eventually we will be doing that, going to the vet, getting hormones. But this is the thing. Hello, Goodman. We can't just decide that we're going to have power over some things and then we have power over it. Because if that worked, well, then we wouldn't have any struggles. And we're all human beings, and all human beings have struggles of some form or another at some time or another. Everybody gets a turn. Nobody gets out of here without a turn. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is that the most empowering words that I ever learned were that I am powerless. I am powerless. Because we talked yesterday, some of the people expressed that they were having troubles with eating. So even with eating, we can eat the right things or we can eat the wrong things. And once we get on a journey that we're wanting to become conscious of this instead of just trying to control certain things, is I know that in drinking, food, things, well, I'm only going to eat this or drink this at certain times. And what we do is we end up trading addictions or, transferring. And so I talk about that a whole lot because I myself did that. At first I had a food addiction, and then I had as a learned behavior, and having the addictive gene was then I learned, oh, drugs. I could lose weight with drugs. And so then it was drug addiction. It wasn't your major street drugs or anything like that. It was blue and clears, black mollies, things that people justify because they're given to them by the pharmacy. I didn't get mine from the pharmacy, by the way, but a lot of people justify that. And it's all about escapism. And we don't even know that we're using this for escapism of what. And so to get to know ourselves better and to realize what we're powerless over and what we do have power over, because then when we realize what we are powerless over, we can realize, what do I have power over? Because sometimes we may feel very defeated, with this idea of what powerlessness means. I had to understand first that I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. And then I had to understand I am powerless over people, places, and things. That I can't make people act right. Just because I think that I'm trying to do better doesn't mean that everybody else is going to try to do better. So I can't be playing tricks on people. This might have been a learned behavior. And sometimes when these learned behaviors exhaust much of our energy, we need to take a look at that behavior when we're allowing it to define who we are. So for me, that gave me freedom to understand what I have power over and what I don't have power over, so that I could be clear and not be spinning my wheels on things that I don't have power over, and yet become more powerful and more empowered by but yeah, getting off the pot was hard for many years for you. Yeah. Yeah, it's not until we get sick and tired. They say when the pain gets great enough, and when we get to you start realizing that the problem isn't necessarily them, and them. I noticed, I told y'all last week I walked the beach with somebody, and she was telling me, and I wanted to tell her, but she just wasn't in the mood to listen. Is that this whole conversation you've told me, they this, she that, they this tells me a person struggles with codependency. And I wanted to know what normal was too. I struggled a lot of my life trying to figure out what is normal. So we're going to talk about, first off, now I don't even care what is normal. What's normal for me may not be normal for somebody else. And we learned that, about that poem about, what's normal for some things, even animals and insects and things, may not be normal for us. So it's about what my normal is. And that's where we get into acceptance. We talked about yesterday, and how to be comfortable in our own skin from within. And that when we get that way, then what is meant for us is going to come to us instead of us trying to hold on to things and trying to control things. So When we look at powerlessness and powerful, we can become empowered. Because becoming empowered means that I focus on what I do have control over and I let go of what I don't have control over. I change my perception about what these things are because we might have learned that we had to be in charge of everything. Actus. You know who I am, the King of Greece. It's good to see you in here. How are you doing? So tonight we're talking about powerlessness and powerful, about how this brings us to the freedom to know what we do have power over and what we don't have power over so we don't waste our time and identify ourselves with low self-esteem because we don't have power over certain things. There's some people, places, and things we have no power over. Once our children are over 18, we really have no power over them. Some people may have, use financial things to have power over their kids, but that doesn't bring you or them freedom. So tonight we're going to be talking about these things because I think that we would all like to have our freedom and feel empowered. We can't blame other people and feel empowered. Thank you so much, Actress. This is Clean Living. John London, how are you? It's good to see you. Everyone's showing up great. We're going to talk about powerlessness and powerful. Yesterday, remember John London in the lab, some people were talking about struggling with eating, with eating too much or eating the wrong foods and things like this. What we do have power over is whether we buy foods in a package. And sometimes that power, we just have to exert it one day at a time and say, I'm not going to buy something out of a package today. Because usually packaged food is processed food with high saturated fat and chemicals in it that you don't even know where they come from. And I'll tell you how I learned this pivotal thing. Angela, it's good to see you. So we're going to break it down. How I learned this with the food was one time I used to do the organizing and decorating physically in Texas, and I, would work sometimes with hoarders. Hi, Bane. So sometimes I would work. Angela, did Grinch and I say hi? Grinch is went back in his house, and so somebody one time had a piece of bread laying in the floor, and so that bread had been there years. And you know what? It didn't get moldy. When I was a kid, bread used to get moldy. This bread just got hard. So what this tells me is that a lot of the foods today, like that bread, when you eat that sits on your behind all this time. It stays on your stomach. It stays in your behind. It doesn't process. Processed food, unfortunately, does not always process. And so we may be stuck with it. John London, habits are hard to kick, and it does take willpower. We're going to talk about that this evening, about the willpower. It looks like Kim's in the house, maybe. Actus, always nice to see you. Always bright, sunny, and with passion to share your valuable knowledge. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm so happy that y'all are here tonight. So, Football Factory, what do we do in life echoes in eternity? It does. These small choices that we make on a daily basis affect the outcomes in tomorrow's. But a lot of times we're trying to strategize and anticipate based on yesterday's choices. And so this is why we end up in that spiral where we feel like we're doing the same thing, different day. So I want to talk about that because when we realize what we're powerless over, we can give up some of that stuff that we're trying to control, that we have no control over, and then realize what we do have control over. So when we look at powerlessness and powerful, it's like, what are you fighting? Because when we hear those words, powerless, what do you all think when y'all hear the word powerless? Powerless. So what we're going to talk about tonight is when we look at powerless, what are our struggles? Whether it's emotional eating, shopping, alcohol, people pleasing, or try to control people around you. Sometimes, like I said, it could be people who have adult children who are using money trying to control them and this kind of thing because they may still associate their identity with these children or adult children. They may associate and they want them to make them look good. So they may be like overextending themselves instead of letting that adult person grow into who they are. Because in essence, what they're telling that person is, well, I don't believe you can make it. I told y'all a story yesterday about how sometimes our parents, will without saying, I don't think you can make it, they'll say, I don't think you can make it. And this will not feed our self-esteem. It will not give us a good self-esteem. Hi, Ruben. Definitely AC/DC. John London. I think the fate, when I hear, you think of fate when you hear powerless. The higher powers are the only true power over us. I believe that too, John London. But the problem is what I see with a lot of people who are very faith-filled, I know they have a lot of faith, is that they still are trying to have power over things. Okay, Actus, you have a good sleep. Get you some blessed and regenerated rest. So sometimes, even when we have faith, because I do that, I have faith in a power greater than myself, and I trust them. But it's been a journey for me to trust that power greater than myself, because I had to learn to quit giving, to quit giving my power away, giving my power away to people's opinions outside of myself, because that's something that when we don't realize, we're giving our power away when we're more concerned about what other people think of us than we do ourselves, than we think of ourselves. So it's important for us to learn to think for ourselves and to realize that we're powerless over other people's opinions of us, or anything else. So, when we look at this, a lot of times when people are looking at powerlessness, and what does that mean? Does it mean weakness, giving up, failure, and defeat, or fate, like John London said? Sometimes we may consider it that way. Powerlessness gave me my freedom back. For me, I had to learn people don't ask God in His will because He knows that it's best for us. Right. But a lot of people still try to control other people when they even believe in God, because it's just a natural thing that they do. It's the way their body trained to do. I work with people on here sometimes that they're trying to control a relationship, that, this has happened or that has happened. And they're like, how do I get this person back? What do I do when this person does this? And you have to honor yourself. Angela, when you're powerless, you feel that you don't have the power to change yourself or your reality. And that's what most people think. And I thought that too, but I had to accept my powerlessness when I did, because I talk about transference of addiction. And even when we've worked, I know that you've had experience with narcissists, and we are powerless over narcissists. And when we understand that we're powerless over narcissists and the way that other people behave toward us, we'll quit giving that energy and quit letting them have our power. So when we understand what am I power, I don't talk about religion, politics, or my age or my dating status on here, Safa, yet. But you're welcome to be here, because I respect all people's faiths. So I don't tell people who or what to believe in. We do believe in something here, believing in a power greater than ourselves, but I don't tell people who or what to believe in, or tell people what religion, because religion can cause people a lot of problems too, and it can cause them some great powerful. It can give people power depending on how people perceive it. But a lot of the people, hey, Mama, hey, Daddy KVC, a lot of the people that I work with believe in a power greater than themselves, but they may have, felt judged by religion. So that's why a lot of the reason we don't talk about religion in here too, because I don't want people to feel judged, because no one's judging anybody in here. We're all just working on being better, better for ourselves. That's what I'm trying to help with here, is for us to realize our own humanness, because a lot of times we can get into this victim villain part, and some of that could be a learned behavior, but it's also our central nervous system. That's where the anticipation and strategizing comes from, because if you've ever been bullied, we talked about, yesterday and the day before, last week, we talked about self-dialogue. And sometimes when people have been verbally abused, they tend to verbally abuse themselves, so we don't want to verbally abuse ourselves. So understanding that just because you say I'm powerless doesn't mean that you're weak, that you're underrated, that there's anything wrong with you. It's understanding that there's some things I don't have power over. I don't have power over for me, I don't have power over alcohol. I don't have power over, some food or drugs, some shopping. But I do have power. It gives me my power back. When I learn how I can abuse my power, when I learn how I can abuse my power and self-sabotage with my power, I get to learn and be clear about, Josie Grinch, take off, thank you. I get to learn what I do have power over. How can you stop smoking? See, that's the thing, is that's another thing, realizing you're powerless over the cigarettes, that you've given the cigarettes the power, because we do give that the power. I stopped smoking 34 years ago. I wish I could give you a clear cut and dry answer to that, Safi, yet, because the thing is that you have to want to. First off, the first thing is desire. No matter what method you use, is you have to have that desire. For me, the reason I quit smoking was because I was pregnant. I didn't quit smoking just because I thought it was a great idea. I can tell y'all that, because I was a self-sabotaging personality. That's the way I was. There was a bird flying around, Chris. Yes, you did see a bird flying around. So I had self-sabotaging behavior, and I didn't know that it was self-sabotaging behavior. I smoked too much, and I wasn't going to smoke until I got ready to smoke. Yeah, that's good advice. Your mama told you not to judge others. My dad told me not to judge others too. You smoke 9-11 cigarettes a day. That's not too bad considering what I was smoking. But if it's not making you feel good in any amount, geez, Jaded Wasteds, it's good to see you too. Why did I smoke? Well, I grew up with smoke. You know, my dad smoked. And so we even back in those days, you could even buy these candy cigarettes, you know. And so when you blew these candy cigarettes, this little dust would come out and make you think you were smoking. So we thought we were big, people trying to grow up before they knew to. But my dad smoked. So I saw my dad smoke, and that looked cool. So then, and two, social anxiety is when I started smoking. I would go to the skating rink and my friends would be smoking. So I wanted to fit in with my friends and be cool too. So I started smoking with my friends when I was like 13, 14 years old. That is a parrot. So yes, there are a lot of books. So that's why I smoked, Angela, and I quit smoking because I was pregnant. It wasn't because I thought it's a great idea, because I was smoking and drinking, and when I got pregnant, people said to me, I didn't think, this one girl said to me, not a lot of people, but this one girl said to me, I didn't think you were the type to have children, because I like to go out. I went out dancing, I went out drinking, I was smoking. I had to quit smoking. I quit drinking when I was pregnant. I still like to dance. No smoking while pregnant. No, I didn't smoke while I was pregnant, and I didn't smoke after I was pregnant either. So I haven't smoked in 34 years. My son, over 34 years actually, because my son would be 34 this next month if he were still here. So I quit smoking when I found out I was pregnant with him, John London. Smoking does cause yellow teeth and old age wrinkles, and yeah, yeah, also cancers. It does. It promotes the growth of cancer. Yeah, Dean, that's probably a good plan. All right. So when we look at powerless, that's what we say, you know. Thank you so much, Pumpty. I want to encourage y'all, if you like this kind of content, then please subscribe to this channel so you can get more of this. We don't talk ugly on here to each other. You know, what we do is we don't talk, you know, about a lot of things that are upsetting people in the world today. There's certainly plenty to accept. Thank you so much, Pumpty, to upset people, but the people aren't our problem. Our thoughts about the people. You're 14? Well, thank you. Our thoughts about the problems are what upset us. So hopefully, if I could get this stuff at 14, Pompty, I would be so much better off than I am today. You know, because like I said, I started making some bad choices when I was 14. And all those bad choices led me to one realization, another realization, another realization, and learning a bunch of unlearned behaviors. So welcome. So, you know, when we think that saying we're powerless means we're weak, that's not right. I did not have a hamburger today. I only eat hamburgers about 3 times a year, because I do watch what I put in my body mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And all of that will make a financial difference too, because if I'm not acting out of addictions, soak up all your money, whether it's shopping. It's not just about, you know, drugs and alcohol. Shopping is an addiction, and we have a transference of addiction. Is that my mother knows that I used to, I had food addiction. I ate too much. And then I started doing drugs. She didn't know about that part when I was doing it. But then I started doing, the blue and clears, the black mollies, the pink hearts, the lucky charms of speed. Then I got skinny. So then what do you want when you get skinny? To this day, you struggle with the temptation to smoke because it gave me a deeper, manly voice, and I wanted to be like the Marlboro Man and Lucky Strikes. They're toasted and they taste like it. I know. I tried to smoke after I had my son. I tried to smoke one cigarette. I was going to smoke one cigarette, and I put it in my mouth, and I was like, oh, and I didn't smoke anymore after that. So, that's it. Because once we do give it up, so then we feel more powerful when we give up bad habits. When we give up eating the improper foods that are not going to make us feel like we have energy, foods that are going to make us feel sluggish. My addiction is trees. I plant a lot of trees. Well, I hear you, Safa. Yeah, that's a good addiction to have. I love plants and trees too. So I learned something after years of recovery, coaching, walking alongside people who are trying to change their lives. What I learned is that, the moment I admitted I was powerless, that, wasn't the moment that I lost my power. It was the moment that I actually found my power. Because when I knew what I was powerless over, I could change it. I could change it as long as I kept trying to change things, because I kept trying to change the way that I felt about myself. Your addiction is YouTube mindless scrolling. That is an addiction, but I'm glad that you found your way here, Pompty. A lot of people have that, and I've done that on Instagram before too. It's like, and I have to ask myself after a while, because I can feel my heartbeat racing up. I can feel that I'm looking for something, and it's like, Stacy, what are you looking for? And I have to stop myself. It's like, yeah, what am I looking for? And then I can put my phone down, when I realize I may be looking for the scandalous stuff, the negativity. Am I looking for negativity? Because a lot of people don't realize that they're looking for some negativity, looking for, some of that. And that's what we put in our mind. And, I have friends and stuff that, when we have dreams and things like this, you know, like a lot of things, like, one night I had a dream about my son because I was talking to somebody about my son before I went to sleep. It's very important to be mindful about what you're putting in your mind before you go to sleep. Are you watching violence? Are you listening to stuff that's, because then you're going to wake up with this nervous system, whether you're conscious of it or not. You're going to wake up with this nervous system that's anxious because you've heard these sounds that are not natural sounds. So good for the trees. Yeah, yeah, I know. So what it is when we're, the control, when we realize that I'm powerless over controlling certain things, but I have power to control some things that are things within myself. See, because the addictions are usually coping. It's usually us trying to fill up a hole in our soul to where we don't feel like we're enough. And so we may feel like we're not smart enough. We may feel like we're not interesting enough. We may feel like we're not intelligent enough. We may feel like we're not thin enough. We may feel like we're not round enough. Thank you, John London. Are you going to sleep now? So yeah, it's important what we put in our mind before we go to sleep. I can watch some throwed off stuff. I just started watching something on my. Can you please suggest me self-help books? I can. The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know if you struggle with anything on your body, but The Body Keeps the Score is very good. But also there's one called What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey and Bruce D. Perry. Now, the most simplest and what a lot of people struggle with and they don't know that they're struggling with is codependency. So Codependent No More might give you insights if you feel like you're doing everything for everybody else. If you feel like that these people have expectations of you and that you really don't get to be yourself and that you're doing everything for everybody else, then the codependent no more. Any of those? Okay, good, John London. I'm glad you're here because I always love receiving your input on these things. So most of us spend our lives trying to control things that were never ours to control. It's our central nervous system trying to help us to feel safe. Does anybody, y'all know that's your central nervous system trying to help you feel safe is usually what control is about? Anybody trying to control you, that's what they're trying to do. And if you're if you really get honest with yourself when you get frustrated or overwhelmed, what am I trying to control? If we asked ourselves, what am I trying to control? We try to control our emotions. We try to control our cravings. We try to control other people's opinions. We try to control whether someone loves us or not. Our children, our spouse, if you have a spouse, the scale. Some people try to control the scale. They get on it every morning. And the reality is that your weight may fluctuate by a pound or two, maybe even 5 on, any given day. But it doesn't mean that that's your true weight, because you'll get on it another day. Hey, Ketan Patel. Your mom had scatia 4 months ago, but now she's completely fine. I'm so glad to hear that, Pompty. How's your mom's weight? Does she struggle? Because sugar can be an addiction too. A lot of us are addicted to sugar, especially once we've conquered alcohol, we may go to sugar. Because there's transference of addiction is really real because we just want to feel better, and just not doing the alcohol doesn't necessarily make your soul feel better. Because if you've got a hole in your soul, if we've got a hole in our soul, just abstaining from the alcohol is not going to feel better. And we as human beings will seek relief from poor feelings. Are we going to seek it outside of ourselves, or are we going to realize what I'm powerless over? Thank you very much, Ketan Patel. So we don't, in the future, we try to have control over the future too. Your mom's a high school teacher and your dad's a principal. That's awesome. So they probably have a lot of things to share with you that are going to help you along the way. They're not new with dealing with these things, are they, Pompty? So the harder we try to force things and control those things, the more exhausted we become. Yes? Yes, when we're trying to control all those things I just listed, we become more and more exhausted trying to control those things. Some of those things we have no control over. John London, I read an article today that said authoritarian behavior is a bridge to self-control for narcissistic types. An extreme example of controlling what we can externally to feel. That's exactly right. And the whole in that type of thing, it's an illusion, right? They're delusional because you cannot control all these things. So a lot of these people think that they're controlling things that they really have no power over. But that gives them that delusion that they do. Nope. Pompty, I love you. You're so sweet. Oh, thank you so much, Pompty. I appreciate that. Don't hang it out outside, otherwise thieves. Okay. Oh, my top. Yeah, they can't get back in my backyard. I got a big fence up there. I colored my room white and silver. Can you please suggest me a third color for my walls? I would say like a purple, not a dark purple, but like a dusty purple. I think that would go good with it, with white and silver, like a dusty purple. Roadman, I didn't even realize I was married to a nurse. I did notice that we gave them too much of everything later. I learned what I was married to. Oh, purple, silver, and white. Yes, I think that would be pretty. Like not a dark purple, but yeah. So, how much of our emotional energy do we spend trying to control other people, places, things, outcomes, circumstances, the food, and we do have some control over the food. We have some control over the food that we buy, whether it's all those sweets. When I go to the store, you don't see me buying boxes and packages of things. Just every once in a while, I have to buy a box of, here we buy a box of noodles. I don't eat a lot of carbs, so I don't eat a lot of noodles. And when I do, I eat the integral type, so I try to eat healthy. I make that conscious choice. Pompty, may you show me your rings collection? Well, this is just a few. We got the stars and the moon on that. Then that one's a black onyx that one of my friends gave me. John London, a bit like spinning plates, can't be controlling other people or the world at large. God consciousness helps surrender to the higher power. Absolutely. See, because then we learn to have belief, faith, and trust that everything's going to work out for us, even if it's not working out right now, because that's the problem with addiction. Addiction is escapism right now because we want to feel better right now. But that feeling better right now causes us, to overspend It causes us to overeat. It causes us to feel miserable when we're trying to get into instant gratification. But if we can have faith, like you're talking about, in consciousness about what is it that I want, then we won't self-sabotage. We're going to look clear about what is it that I want. Yeah, you're road man and good man. Yes. So exactly. I love that consciousness. And that's what I had to develop through realizing my powerlessness. When I realized what I did not have power over, then I could become empowered and powerful with what I have the energy and power over. Do you have any of your childhood pics? I do, but not right here in front of me. So a conversation that inspired tonight. I'm glad your brakes got fixed today, Mom. All right. So was it someone shared with me? They told me that they were struggling with that emotional eating. Some people emotionally eat and they acknowledge I'm emotionally eating. And so they go for the food rather than try to figure out the emotion. And, we talk about this is that I've got a feeling wheel. I didn't pull it out here. But on the other side, a lot of the emotions are what we would consider negative or things that we're afraid of, those fears that we talked about yesterday and last week, is what are we afraid of? When we can acknowledge what is it that I'm afraid of, we can quit feeding that fear. But when we do something like the food addiction or the other things, we're feeding our fear because does the fear go away? Not permanently. It's instant gratification. But then sometimes it's worse after the instant gratification than it was before. So when they told me that they were trapped in that cycle and they were having trouble to break it, my heart immediately went to something that I've learned over years, that it really wasn't about the food, that the food had become the comfort, right? Y'all heard me say yesterday, the food will be the comfort. The alcohol is, usually people are trying to get more in touch with their spirit. The drugs, they're smoking, smoking or what have you, we're trying to get peace, right? So it's peace. And then sometimes with the shopping, we're trying to get acceptance. We're trying to, look beautiful. So we're really searching for beauty. And then sometimes with the gambling, we're trying to get power because money. A lot of people assume money is power, and I'm not saying that it isn't. It does help to have some money, but it's not the end all be all because your health is your wealth, as my mama says. So what we feed ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially is so important. So for some people, when it wasn't the food that became the comfort, it was shopping, work, social media, like Pomty says, people pleasing, overspending, perfectionism, and different behaviors that we were trying to control people with. The same search for relief, because there's a transference, okay? So the same search for relief, yeah. Okay, I'm not talking about that, Mom. I'm glad that you quit smoking. Ty Hughes, not everyone needs your help. Okay, Ty Hughes, well, you have a good evening then. All right, because the behavior isn't, in codependency, it's true, not everybody needs your help. Okay, so when I just talked about the codependency, is a lot of times we associate our value with helping people. And so if that's the way we associate our value, I'm not saying it because you know what? Not everybody who is trying to escape, but it's just looking at your intention and motivation. This is what I talked about this morning. There's some people who can, I'm not saying everybody who, good evening, Flying Brian. It's good to see you. I'm not saying that everybody that drinks has a drinking problem or everybody that smokes has a smoking problem or everybody that gambles has a gambling problem, but only you know that. I don't tell people that, but I do know that if this is causing problems, it could be that, in recovery, it's like finally we come to terms when I say I'm powerless over something, it's like, oh, could it be the alcohol? Could it be, could it be this? If I'm having troubles with finances, it's like, it could be the job, or is it the spending? You're trying to quit chewing gum, so you started smoking. Mom quit smoking and started chewing gum. But this is what I mean about the transference of trying to find relief, right? Is that we feel like we got to be busy with something. And I know I'm not perfect. I sit there and I still will be sitting in a meeting with my feet moving and things like this. So sometimes. So it's just about acknowledging what is going on with us, getting to know ourselves rather than trying to control everything else outside of ourselves. Yeah, we have to think for ourselves. So the difference between giving up and surrender, because when we think of being powerless, there's a difference between giving up and surrender. So I'm going to explain that. Okay. So there's the giving up says nothing will ever change. It's those absolutes that we talked about a few weeks ago. Surrendering says that I've been trying to control something that I cannot, and it's time to find a different way. Time to do something different because I'm going to keep getting frustrated. Y'all ever feel like you're on that spiral when you're trying to control something? Yes, Scrunchy. Yes. So what are we actually powerless over? So here's what I've discovered. I'm powerless over yesterday, right? I'm powerless over someone else's choices. I can't control somebody else's choices. I'm powerless over whether people approve of me. I'm powerless over how life unfolds. And for someone living with addiction and compulsive behaviors, they're powerless over what happens once that cycle takes over. See, if that's the way it was for me, is that's why I don't use alcohol or drugs or anything, because once I start, it doesn't stop. And so I'm powerless over that, so that's not an excuse. It's a starting point to understand where I'm powerless. So when I know what I'm powerless over, when I know that I cannot control this, because a lot of people switch in this transference, a lot of people will switch. They'll do the drugs and be like, no, I don't want to do drugs. That's like me because I have children and I don't want to get in trouble with my children. So I'm going to drink alcohol because alcohol is legal. So then we drink alcohol, but then that doesn't work either, because we may find ourselves, for me, going into blackouts and this kind of thing, or making bad choices. And so when we are when we admit we're powerless, we can be responsible for our choices rather than think that there's just something, a default thing. Yep. Sometimes you just got to shut people. Sometimes, they say take what you need and leave the rest in recovery. So here's where your power lives, John London. I hear that sometimes the more we fix in controlling or thinking of something, it holds more power and spirals, or it'll be like what you want doesn't happen. Exactly. And so we can catch ourselves. What I want us to do, because I have to catch myself. Sometimes I can get into, I wonder if this is going to happen, or I wonder if that, or, there's people that send negative information to me a lot. There's a chat that I'm in where I get this negative stuff that I don't like that unfolds. Now, what I can do is I have a choice. Sometimes I can go in that chat and be encouraging, but sometimes I have a choice. I don't have to get in that chat, you know? So it's about when we understand that I have no power. I can't be, those people be in that chat talking the way they do. I don't have to tell them how to act. I don't have to tell them not to chat like that. I don't have to try to change those people. They have valid reasons for why they're saying and doing what they're doing. But I can choose that I don't want to participate, because it's like, what kind of energy do I want to carry? Because I'm valuable and I'm worthy, and I get to carry what I want to carry and let go of what I don't want to carry. You admire the people in support and recovery. Yeah, the groups and the people really empathize, and from what you see, keep each other accountable and on track. They really do, because when you get in recovery, sometimes they tell you that you figure out that they're going to love you until you love yourself, or at least that's my feeling. And I got in recovery, and they did love me until I could love myself, because I worried about being judged when I got in there. Hey, Rabia, thank you so much. Okay, Pumpty, it's human biology. We sometimes love to. Sorry, I missed your comment, Pumpty. It's hard to stay focused. I do have my notes here, though. It's human biology. We sometimes love to do things we know are not going to benefit. We sure do. I agree. I'm not trying to ignore your comments. I'm sorry. Is that better? Because you're right. You're right. You're very wise for your age. You're very wise anyway for any age. There's a lot of people who don't know that. A lot of people spend time shooting on themselves and having regrets, and realizing that if you have a power greater than yourself, getting to pray. And I am so grateful for the support that I've gotten in recovery. I didn't know how to handle a lot of things, a lot of life on life's terms until recovery. And there's people in there that have known how to handle things that I couldn't. I forget how many different types of recovery. There's so many different kind of recoveries. Your question was, what is more important, talent or consistency, and why? Consistency. I believe that consistency is more important because usually talent comes from practice and development, and that practice and development has consistency. That's a great question. Practice and development, because a lot of people give up because they don't do it right the first time or the second time or the third time. But we have to practice and development. But you have to, if you don't, what's practice? Practice is consistency. So it becomes ingrained in us and part of our natural, what we do naturally. I used to work in plastic surgery, and there was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics written by Maxwell Maltz back in it was in 1960s, I believe. It was an old book. And so what it did was it dealt with the self-image. And, it also helped golfers and people like that to be able to visualize what it is that they wanted, because so many of us run off of trying to create from what we don't want rather than creating from what we do want. True, food companies and others take advantage of our biology to want fat, sugar, and pleasure. Absolutely. They make the commercials all gratifying looking, and they make it easy to get, Since I was younger, the fast food places in America are just like crazy. I don't know where they are, with you, John London. Down here in Mexico, it's not fast food places really. There are some fast food places, believe it or not. There's Kentucky Fried Chicken, Burger King, and McDonald's down here, but they're not on every corner like they are in a lot of places. There's people cook out of their homes down here. No health department, nothing, and people eat it. It's people are proud of their cooking, but it's better to be made at home. But I still prefer to cook my own food because I know what's in it. Pumpty. But I feel talent is important because I saw many people come live on social media without any purpose. They're very consistent, but no talent. Yeah, you're right. Talent is important too, but it's still that practice and development. A lot of people don't find a lot of people don't even know what their talents are. I didn't know what my talent was. And some of the talents are just practice and development, because when we're born, we all have these talents and gifts, but sometimes as we grow older, we forget what our talents and gifts are. It's true that we all have talents, but a lot of us forget our talents when we have to get into responsibilities and all of this kind of things. We forget, what is my talent? I have many people that I work with that say, what am I here for? Mom, sometimes I'd like to renegotiate life if possible. I hear you. Blind Brian, John London, I agree wholeheartedly with that, right? Let me look back at John London's again. Yes, thank you, Blind Brian. Yes, I love that I have support. I can go anywhere in the world and run into people just like me, and I love it. Mexican food is so healthy usually, the real whole foods. Yes, yeah. So it's very nice. It's not as fattening, I don't think, down here. And surprisingly, it's not like Tex-Mex. In Texas, you got fattening food. All right. So while we're powerless over many things, I have a tremendous power over my response. We have power over how we respond to things. Roadman, I thought it was cool when I bought milk at Costco how it lasted a month because it's whole milk organic. Our milk down here isn't even that you can buy milk in the refrigerator, but our milk is not processed. So our milk isn't in the refrigerator down here. We just get it off the shelf. So because while I'm powerless over many things, I have tremendous power over how I respond to things, right? We have power over how we respond to things. A lot of people say, you made me. That's a sign of codependence because nobody's making you do anything. We choose to respond, and this could be a learned behavior. When people say, you made me do this, that's a blame behavior. That's a blame behavior, and that is not empowerment. When you take on the blamed behavior, or if you're blaming somebody, that's not empowerment. That's giving your power away. So when we can understand, a lot of us, who knows that, who grows up and learns I'm giving my power away to this, and I'm not giving my power, I'm empowered here. We don't usually learn that until we are grown. So, Pompty, I'm so glad that you're here. All, the natural foods are healthy. Processed foods, there's a lot of stuff in there you don't even know. You don't even know what the processed foods. When you're eating these chips, things with saturated fats, I don't hardly eat chips. I may eat chips 2-3 times a year. I don't eat many chips because the chips have been fried. Yeah, Mom drinks coconut milk. I drink oat milk myself. I like oat milk. So, while I'm powerless over many things, I have tremendous power over my response, and I can ask for help. Do you know asking for help is powerful? It's empowering because I get to learn something. And I used to not try to learn things, and I do now. John London, I didn't catch all the visualization of professional golfers and surgery book. It sounded deep in how we can visualize at the end goal of our conscious actions and decisions. John London, look up this book. It's on here, but it's like 10 hours long. But, if you listen to it in short stretches at a time, it's called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And he was a plastic surgeon, but then he turned into a psychologist because he realized that even though there's a real thing called body dysmorphia, because I worked with people in the weight loss community, and some of the people I've worked with have lost hundreds of pounds. And so, but when they didn't realize their size anymore after they lost weight. And they still saw themselves in the mirror as being extremely obese or overweight, even though they had lost weight. And what Dr. Maxwell Maltz talks about is how when he did plastic surgery on people, if they had, if they wanted a nose job or their ears done or something like this, they still had dysmorphia afterwards because it's about changing the way we see ourselves. So this is kind of what we're talking about, or we talked about, yesterday, is how do we see ourselves? Because that's really what's important. Pompty, it's oils, medicines, but fried foods are disaster. Exactly. Fried foods are disaster. And the foods do affect the way we feel. You're exactly right, Pompty. Angela, that's true. A lot of people make you responsible for their feelings and say you make me angry. Right, and that they got angry because you offended them in some reason, maybe, but it's not your fault that they're offended. Did you be mean? If you weren't mean, this is why, when I was talking about earned guilt and unearned guilt last week or the week before, it's like if you didn't say anything mean and yet somebody tells you that, then they're just trying to throw something onto you, make you responsible for their feelings. But so you're not responsible for everybody's feelings. John London, it's nice to know we add years to our lives every time we don't indulge a sweet tooth or don't smoke. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is nice. Because when people ask me, what is my beauty regimen or whatever, why do I, it's because I'm mindful about what I'm putting in my body. Am I perfect? No. Sometimes I do put the candy in my body, John London. These good and plenty candies, I'll get into them. But I don't do it all the time. And I'm very mindful about it because none of us are perfect. You're definitely going to look into that book. Yeah, you can hear it for free on here on YouTube. It's a red and white looking book, and it says Psycho Cybernetics. And it gets into different things. It talks about happiness. It talks about how our happiness is an inside job, and I think that's like chapter 7 or chapter 10. It's chapter 7 and chapter 10 are my favorite chapters in that book because they talk about self-image and how you see yourself. When I used to teach and take martial arts, that's how we did our kicks, was we had to visualize doing the kick before we did it. And that's how they talked about with the golfing and things like this, is doing that putt before you did it. Yes, you can picture yourself with that better physique when training. It wouldn't hurt me to listen to that book over again either. Hello, Lewis. All right. So the things we have power over is when we're struggling, because a lot of the things that I didn't know how to do a lot of things, and I had to ask for help. So I can ask for help. This is where I have power, is I can ask for help. If I don't know something and if I feel like I'm powerless over something, I can ask for help. I used to be afraid to ask for help because I was afraid of looking stupid, but guess what? We get to keep looking stupid if we're afraid of looking stupid and don't ask for help. Pompey, you are so smart. That's right. If anyone is capable of making us angry, they are actually controlling us. That's right. So you're giving your power away. That's what we're talking about tonight is we give our power away. Do we have any power over that person? Why are we letting that person have power over us? So I like what, John London has said and others about the higher power is when we understand we have a higher power, a power greater than me, and that's who I ask and run my thoughts to, is like set my intentions with in the morning is that, what is mine to do today? There's a saying in something called A Course in Miracles, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? And what would you have me say? And to who? And so asking for that kind of guidance because there's all kinds of goodness out there. If I'm giving my power away to things that aren't really beneficial to me, that's on me. If I give my power away to that. Angela, what do you believe is going to happen to you after you die, Stacy? Where do codependents go after they die? Well, I'm not as codependent. I break away. Codependency would be so easy to fall into. So I have fallen into it before a couple of times after doing all the work on codependency because we have a natural, we naturally want to help. And I fell into it with my daughter, after a while. And so where do we go when we die? I feel like that life is a series of learning experiences. This is just my belief. I'm not saying that this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but that's my belief. My belief is that we do have an afterlife, and I do believe that it's like that we come back. Whatever we don't learn in this life, we get to do it in the next life. So we can be teachable, humble, teachable, and reachable in this life. Because if we're not, I think we get to come back and learn it in the next life. I don't know exactly how it works, but I do believe that's what I do believe is that a lot of our things that we may struggle with in this life and not understand may have come from our past life. And when we think about that, you can't even remember the day you were born, let alone the past life. So sometimes when we wonder why did I choose these parents? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? If we chose our parents, which I'm not saying we did, and I'm not saying we didn't. There's a lot of things we can wonder, you know. For me, I kind of think I chose my parents. What if I chose? That's empowerment there. What if I chose them? What was it that I chose to learn? And I'm not saying that you did, Angela, because I know you had, but I'm saying for me, is what if I chose them? What was it to learn? Were they, there's a movie called Cloud Atlas. And what if we're recycled people? Because I used to wonder when I was in church, I talked about how my thoughts in church were, was it yesterday or the day before? Anyway, last week. And I would be thinking, they taught me in my church growing up is that there's these streets of gold. And I'm not saying that there's not, but they were telling me there's streets of gold with people with crowns of the people they saved. And I thought, how are they going to fit all of us people up there in heaven? When all of us are dying, how are we all going to fit up there? I ask these questions, I want to know stuff. And then I started thinking as I got older, I didn't care about having any crowns with gold, with jewels in it. I really cared about what I could do here now to help people, what I can do to be a change that I want to see in the world. What can I do now? Because I don't know what goes on in the afterlife. I don't know, what's going to happen after we die. But I like to think there's movies that John London and I talked about. It is the What Dreams May Come. I liked the perception of that because it's all just a perception. And what if it is like what dreams may come for whatever we think that is what's going to happen after we die is what's going to happen after we die, each individually, all of us. What do y'all think about that? Hi, Rusty and Amy. You're very welcome, Pompty. Okay, thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Barry. All right, Rusty's. That's right, Amy and I were talking about that. Thank you. Yes. You like science? I believe science plays a part in it too, Pompty. I think that scientists, the neuroscientists, are starting to realize that there's something that happens after we die. I think that a lot of them are starting to realize that there's something that happens after we die, that we are energy. See, our bodies are going to die, but there's energy, and I think it's like the soul, but the energy can live on. But, I think science is cool too. I love neuroscience. Okay, Viola, it's good to see you. Those were the people with they were the people with the collection plates flying, Brian. They were. They were. Yes. God is limitless, God. God is a limitless God, Brandon. Brunya, hey, it's good to see you, darling. I hope that everything's fine. I hope you're getting some rest now. Okay, Brenya. Hello, Viola. We will all be sitting at the right hand of the Father. We are so many. We are a lot. John London. Research has confirmed that the egg chooses which sperm fertilizes. It's not always the fastest. Yeah, it's amazing because, like Pompey was saying, science has some credibility, but a lot of people only want to think about the science and the credibility, in the science lab. But I believe in science in this electromagnetic field, the quantum field, all of this. I think it's amazing. I think that source, whoever we perceive it to be, that source is the master scientist, is the master gardener, is the master whatever in here, that some of this is just so beautiful here on earth that we just can't deny that there's something great here. So I'm powerless over many things. I have that power over my response. I can ask for help. I can tell the truth. I can tell the truth. I can reach out instead of isolating. I can tell people when I make a mistake. I don't mind telling people, oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, or something like this. I don't have to shrivel up in shame because I understand that I'm human. You're a human. We don't have to shrivel up in shame. We do. I believe that we all have a God seed in us that connects us. I think that we are all meant for connection. Brunya, I'm here, love. Is Robbie here? No, I haven't seen Robbie in this one. Angela, very interesting. Do I believe in hell? Where a narcissist is going to go? I believe that this is just me. I don't know. I was taught that there's a burning place down below, but I believe that people create their own hell. That can be here on earth. Because again, I don't know what happens after we die. But I do believe especially people with addiction, we've created our own hell, and I believe that some people do create their own hell. So I believe hell can be something that's right here. I don't necessarily, I don't know what to think about all that. I don't even have a clue where narcissists are going to go. They're probably going to do the same thing and go where they want to and do what they want to. I don't even know. That's a good question, though. That's going to have me pondering probably later tonight. Have me wondering, where do? Because I try not to judge a narcissist, because then I would be deciding where people go, right? And even though I may not want to spend time and space with a narcissist, I still have compassion for them, because I would hope that they could change, but that's not up to me. That's one of the things I can't control. And they're probably not going to change unless they seek out change, and most of them don't. Viola, thank you for that heart, Viola. Rusty, you have it. Everything on earth lives off energy and will live off their energy. Absolutely. I do believe in the energetic fields. I also think these bodies are just vessels for our souls. Yes, that's what I believe too, John London, is that the bodies, and that's where science comes in too. When we're talking about all these things that we use outside of ourselves, and I like metaphysics personally myself, is I like metaphysics where you mix spirituality and science, and that's what's metaphysics. And the thing is they are vessels. And when we consider our bodies vessels, we will pay attention to what we're putting in it mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and how we're treating ourselves. Because when we realize that we have a divine connection, I know for me, one time I had this Texas hissy fit because I had this old negative dialogue in my head a long time ago. I was a single mom. I was struggling. I was overwhelmed. I was frustrated. I didn't get the job that I wanted. And what do I say? Human beings are upset when they don't get what they want, or they fear losing what they have. And I didn't get the job that I wanted. I beat up my pillow and threw my Texas hissy fit, and I said some negative things in my mind. And then when I finished got over my hissy fit, and I sat there and started processing it, it was a real turning point for me, because I thought to myself, is this the way my source would have me talk to myself? So if you've got negative dialogue, and I had to learn this myself. I said the other week about an old timer asking me, so how's your relationship with God? And I'm like, my relationship with God's just fine, because I was doing things. I was ushering in the church. It wasn't the church that Flying Brian was talking about. I went to a Unity church, which talks about metaphysics. And so I was ushering in the church and I was doing things in the church. I spent a lot of time there and I was like, my relationship with God is just fine. And she's like, Stacy, that is so arrogant. And I'm thinking, how's she calling me arrogant? I'm telling her I'm struggling and she's calling me arrogant. But then, like when people make us mad, how we chew on that a while, we sit there and ruminate over it. And so I thought about it. And then after I thought about it, I thought, oh, I get it now. My source would not want me struggling like this, is what she's trying to tell me. So I need to be teachable because I need to learn how to ask the questions. Like I said a while ago, I can ask for help. I can tell the truth. I can try not to act like I have it all together. I can tell the truth. I'm really struggling right now, you know? I can reach out instead of isolate, and I can pause before I react. I can choose honesty over hiding. I can practice self-compassion instead of shame. And that's where our power is. That's where our power has been all along, is what we can do instead of what we can't do. I also think, yeah, that's what, okay, Brenya, not really. I'm tired and as heck, but can't sleep. Oh, goodness. How about the science that created us and the rest of the world, right? That I believe God is the ultimate scientist. I believe God is everything. So, but I don't, you can call God what you want because God isn't codependent. That's what I've learned, is God is not codependent. God does not need me to be codependent. If I'm supposed to be in the image and likeness, that means I'm not codependent. That means that I'm not these things, and I have to put forth the effort to break old cycles and patterns, to become who I'm supposed to be who I'm supposed to be who I was born, not really become anybody else. I've already tried to become different people, but to be who I was born, and because I was born all right. I was born fine. I'm going to use you as my background noise to try to sleep. Okay, get you some rest, darling. Just look at the eyeball. I know, right? See, that's the thing, is I talk to people about if they know what's going on in their bodies. Your bodies, when all these things are firing in your bodies, it looks like a galaxy inside because you've got all these neurons, protons, and there's all these chemicals that are being released in our body. And so our behaviors, and we don't realize how our body carries us through this life and all the things that we're doing, and that it's following our thoughts and our feelings. So yeah. Flying Brian, I bet the heat down. Oh, it is exhausting, Flying Brian. I love to walk, but right now I am not. I am not loving the walking around right now. It is exhausting. I'm in the house. I am in the house a large part of the day. Because then we got something called Sargasso. The beach is, here too, but even the Sargasso on the beach is stinky. John London, it's something like 120 days into pregnancy that the soul enters the body in Islamic belief, right? Yeah, they say in some things, that I study, say that the soul comes in at the time of birth, that, it's the fetus, and then the soul comes in at the time of birth. So yeah, it's different thoughts, but it's not the soul. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, John London. Brandon Small, every creation has a creator. Hello, ma'am. Hello, Devish, my Rusty. I think you probably look like one of your ancestors from 100 years ago. Probably so. Flying Brian, cooler heads prevail. They sure do. They sure do. Angela, thank you for sharing your opinion, Stacy. Nobody knows what happens after we die, but we can be sure that we are spirits having a human experience. Absolutely. I believe that so much, Angela. Exactly. We're human. I work with Reiki and chakras and stuff, and with the neuroscience, that I'm not a neuroscientist, but I work with the neuroplasticity, about changing the neural pathways. And I'm not, that's not my professional field, but I know a lot about it. And some of my teachings are integrating the neural pathways along with the chakras, because this part of our body, up from our heart, is our human beingness. And when we can integrate both, the heart is our harmony. And then down below the heart, those chakras there, because we have 7, the heart is, the 4th, but we have 7. And so below that is our human beingness. So the bottom part below the heart is those are the things that give us our drive. That's your ego chakra. That's going to be your relationship chakra and being grounded. A lot of people, don't achieve their goals because they don't get grounded too, because everything is divinely connected. Goodman, sorry I've been eating. It's okay, Brunya. I believe that if you live a bold life, you'll go to Valhalla, but if you lead a lazy, unproductive life, you'll go to hell. I believe that we go I like the way that What Dreams May Come did, about how whatever your belief system is, what's going to happen when we die, if whatever our belief system is. John London, I feel that too, that heaven and hell can be inside of the soul on this earth. There should be a sequel to The Body Keeps the Score called The Soul Keeps the Score. Absolutely. I think the soul confuses a lot of people, and a lot of people don't have a relationship with their soul because you can't pinpoint the soul in the body, right? We don't know where the soul is. Some people may think that the soul is in the heart. For me, they're not wrong, but for me, I think the soul rides by the ego. It's connected to the heart, and it's also connected to our relationships because we may be recycling our relationships. We don't know. Some studies think that when we say we meet again, the next life, whatever heaven is to us, our perception, our feeling of it. So we will meet again. So it's the relationships in the heart that are connected with the ego and the soul. One gives us our drive. I mean, our truth is connected with our heart. What is your truth? And then your ego and soul are right below that. Your ego chakra is really right below that. But since it's in the solar plexus, I like to think that it's connected with the soul, the sun, because that chakra is also golden. It's yellow. So with it being golden and yellow like the sun, I like to think that the ego and the soul ride right there together, that the ego gives you your drive and the soul gives you your direction, the soul's journey, these kind of things. So, why willpower in itself is not enough? It's about taking that journey that adventure to our soul, to ourself, to our self, selves, and soul. When I'm working with people on healing, I'm talking about healing ourself, ourselves, and our soul. Because if we just think we just want to get this done, we just want to get this done. Most human beings or human doings just want to get this done, just want to get that done, and they're trying to get somewhere. Like there's an ending to where we get, and the ending is when we're dead. That's it. That's all. That's when the ending is, because life is an adventure. So while willpower alone isn't enough, if willpower alone solved emotional struggles, none of us would be having them, right? Uh-oh. I missed some comments. I'm sorry. Goodman, I learned not to trust man. I learned to look the book for yourself. Blue Jay. No, I was not out last night at the lake. Goodman, when you learn what pot smoke and other stuff does in the Bible, you're a sorceress. I don't know that pot smoking did make me a sorceress. Rusty Waters fishing, and God is not short on cash. That's right. That's right. God is the source. JR. Hello, JR. Amy Rooker. Hey, Amy. It's good to see you. Thank you. Iswood. Rusty. What kind of minds and people built the pyramids? I know. These are like things we just can't perceive, right? It's wild. Doubt kills, Blind Brian, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Absolutely, Branya. In some Celtic beliefs, like my Loken beliefs, Loken means son daughter of Loki. The soul enters at birth. When the baby screams, it's the soul fusing the fetal body. Yeah, and the breath. The breath is our vital life force. And a lot of people don't take the breath for granted. That's why we do the breathing at the end of this, because we can always connect with our life force and we can always change whatever it is within us that we need to change. Branya, I'm what they call a son of Loki. Cool. Wednesday has to do with the Celtic belief system. That word Wednesday, it was originated from the Celtic belief system. If we want to know what these things do, because I come on here on Wednesdays and it's Wednesday, because I want y'all to realize what you overcome. Because so many people are looking at what their struggles are, but look at your victories too, because that's just important. This is how we create harmony, is knowing that it's not personal. Everything is personal to you, but it's not personally directed at you. You're not like a lot of people learn to say, I can't catch a break. Well, when we think we can't catch a break, just like whatever we think the afterlife is or not afterlife, is then we won't, because your mind is so very powerful. So most people already know what they need to do. That's rarely the issue. The question is what pain is this behavior helping me to avoid? See, because healing isn't just removing the behavior. Healing is learning how to sit with the feeling beneath it without running. You know, I talked the other day about what are we running to and what are we running from? Opposite way. So tonight I want to leave you with a few questions, okay? So what are you trying to control? Is it a people, place, thing, partner, parents, children, jobs, people, even people out on driving on the street, other drivers on the road? You're trying to control these things? Do you have power over that? What are you trying to control that might actually be controlling you? Because a lot of times when we're trying to control something, it's trying to control us. I have had to sit and do my own inventory sometimes, because if I thought somebody was trying to control me, sometimes I had to realize they were trying to get their way, but I was also trying to get my way. I don't argue with the people. I have to realize my control issues are butting against their control issues. So what we need to do is we need to negotiate, not compromise. I don't have to give in, because that's why we really get into defending, when we think I have to give in. But we have to learn to use our thoughts, use our divine mind, breathe in, to negotiate. So maybe freedom doesn't begin with trying harder. It begins with telling yourself the truth. So in closing, this is what I want to say before we get to this breathing. Powerlessness isn't weakness, it's honesty. Do I have power over this? You don't have power over people in the TV set. You get to choose, am I going to watch this negative thing, or am I not going to watch this negative thing? If you have a job you don't like, am I going to keep carrying myself to this job, or am I going to look for another job? If you are in a relationship you don't want to be in, well, you have to remember you are either going to participate or not. Goodman, I think the bottom line is the better we feel about ourselves, the more confident we are. Yes. Robbie, there you are. There you are. Brunya, did you see Robbie's here? Do your best on this planet while we're privileged to be here. Worry the next life when you get there. It will come soon enough. Yep, it will. Enjoy life each day. Thank you, Robbie. Brunya was looking for you a while ago. I believe the soul spirit runs through the whole chakra system. I do too. They say that it does, because your cerebral spinal fluid is this magnificent fluid, and we get a little of it. It comes from the autonomic fluid from when we're born. So this is why we develop a lot of traits, that aren't ours, and but it's just a little bit. But it turns into your cerebral spinal fluid, and that fluid runs up and down your ganglia chains in your back. One is your autonomic chain, and the other is your cerebral spinal chain, or the other side. So one has to do with how our thoughts. The autonomic is like the automatic, which means that the automatic, when you got to go to the bathroom, you just get up and automatically go to the bathroom. Well, this is how triggers work in you and your reactions, is that if you learn to defend yourself, your defense system, if you learn to defend yourself, and this releases there too, and it's going to release cortisol, it's going to release adrenaline, it's going to release too much of some chemicals. And this is what will make you feel bad. So when we understand that relationship with what all's happening inside of our body, we're going to be more mindful about our thoughts and how our thoughts are feeding these intricate systems in our bodies. I did my presentation, and it had all this stuff firing over, and everything. You could see the neurons and all of this stuff, what this does. So you're exactly right. The chakras, their energy centers, is what the chakras are. But once we know what the energy centers do, then we can realize what part of our is going on with us might be bothering us, like your truth chakra. It's your spiritual chakra, then your intuition, because your hypothalamus, pituitary, and pineal glands are right through there. And then you've got your glands through here, but a lot of times we're not saying the truth, or we're having toxic thoughts or toxic things. And all of these things, when you think about all your perceptions, all your senses draining down your neck, what are you letting drain down your neck? It also drains down those chains in your back, or not, because sometimes your chakras are blocked, right, Amy? Sometimes the chakras are blocked. John London, I think some part of my soul travels or meets with my higher self when I fall asleep because I wake up happy usually. Dreams have important meanings. Some were precognitive for me. Yes, I think so too. We have another life when we're asleep. Maybe. Flying Brian, Stacy, thanks for sharing your time. Always a treat to see you. Back on nights this week. Gotta go. All right, Flying Brian, it's always a treat to see you for however long you can stay. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I always appreciate your input. Thank you. Branya, nothing lasts forever. Animals, nature. I think animals are meant to teach us about grief. Really, they're our first experiences typically with grief as animals, and I think that's they're to teach us to love, and that grief is a part of love. Because if we didn't love, we wouldn't grieve. So I think you're right, Branya. Nature's people, even the gods, everything will pass in the end. So what I want to leave with all of you is that don't live a boring life because life is too short. Yep. Amy, that is my full moon pendant. Oh, that's got the full moon and the crescent moon in there. Let me see if I can get it up. It's got a full moon and a crescent moon. It's kind of a shell onyx type of material. So, Angela, do you know how healthy your chakra system is? I do know. Mine's pretty healthy because I work on my chakras. I'm mindful. You're breathing. When we do the breathing, if you listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about how your cerebrospinal fluid, the breathing helps to release the cerebrospinal fluid. Most people don't realize that they're not breathing at their maximum capacity. Most people are shallow breathing. The body keeps the score talks about our breath too, that we need to breathe fuller. But most of us, when we've suffered any kind of trauma or been in fear, we tend to have shallow breaths, and we've trained our bodies for that. Maybe if you walked on eggshells, well, what do you think? You're going to be like walking on eggshells. So mine's good because I do breathe. I'm mindful about my breathing. I spend at least, probably 20, at least 20 at the least a day practicing the breathing, because like when practicing with y'all, doing the 5 breaths, is I always encourage people when I'm working with people to try to practice 5 minutes a day at least, because what the breathing does is it helps us to feel safe, is what it does, because it puts us in the present moment. It gives, when we have oxygen to our brain, we can have divine ideas. And I have to I create this content for y'all, right? So I need to have divine ideas so that I can create. And so being grounded also, so your top chakras, getting oxygen to my brain, but also being grounded helps me to create. So knowing that my chakras work in these ways and what exactly my chakras do, and about telling myself the truth. If I'm having negative self-dialogue, or if I'm thinking something negative about somebody I don't know, then that would be not truth chakra. That would be like not telling the truth. So it's about being mindful about, this is my spirit, this is my intuition, my truth, and then obviously the heart, and then your solar plexus is the ego, and then the relationship chakra, and then being grounded. And so knowing about all this that can happen within my body to help me feel safe and protected and divinely directed. And so life for no one is always perfect, but I do not have to react to things. I don't react to things. So that's a good thing. So in closing, powerlessness isn't weakness, it's honesty. And honesty opens the door to healing. The day I stopped fighting reality, because I used to fight reality, I used to have these negative dialogues for myself and the negative dialogues for others. And I'm not saying that I'm 100% not having that today, but I very rarely have it today. And when I do, I can catch myself. Sometimes I can go into, well, I hope that this doesn't happen. And then I start imagining, what is it that you do want, Stacy? I have to consciously tell myself, what is it that you do want, Stacy? And so I have to visualize what I do want instead of imagining what I don't want. All right, Brunyon, Robbie. Okay. I know, Mom. I do. I balance my mom's chakras. She loves getting her chakras balanced. It's very relaxing and nurturing when you get your chakras balanced. You are very welcome, Angela. Thank you for being here, and you always ask interesting questions. I appreciate that. I appreciate your participation. It's always good to see you here. Thank you for being here. We're going about to breathe, y'all. Y'all about almost ready to breathe? Okay. Well, hopefully this breathing will help you sleep super perfect, Cell. Amy. Oh, right on. I love it. Thank you for doing this. I haven't met anyone who has similar beliefs in a long time. Well, I hope that you will subscribe, Amy, because I get on here on Monday and Friday nights, and I get on here on Wednesday and Sunday mornings. So I hope you'll subscribe and that we'll get to see you some more, because I love being able to connect with people. So, Robbie. Good night, Robbie. I hope that you get some blessed and regenerated rest. All right, y'all ready to breathe, darlings? So, in closing, what I want to say is that if this message resonated with you, I want to hear your thoughts. You can comment later if you want. And I know Amy said it resonated with her, so I hope you'll subscribe if you like this kind of content. And so I just wanted to ask, what is one thing as we breathe in, because it's just doing that one thing one day, and then one thing. And then you become empowered because you're making the choices on what you want. So what is one thing you're ready to stop trying to control so that you can focus on what you can control? Okay? Because what you want is on the other side of what you don't want. And what you don't want is usually what you're trying to control. So, okay. All right. Viola. Thank you so much, Viola. I appreciate that. It's always a pleasure to see you here too, and I'm glad that you were able to make it. You ready to breathe with us, darling? Let's breathe, darlings. Let's breathe. So let's just breathe all the way into our tummy so that you get to experience this breathing. And it does. It goes down your ganglia chains in the back and it comes back up. And that's what it's supposed to do is your cerebrospinal fluid. It frees all this. You're not stoving it up when you're not going, right? Or when you're not shallow breathing. So let's breathe, darlings. We're going to take a deep breath in, fill up your tummy, your shoulders will rise, your neck will get all that good air through, your brain is going to get some nice oxygen, your cells will be regenerated. If you can, hold it for 4 counts. But if not, just do the best you can and release gently and slowly, okay? All right, here we go. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. And release. Breathe. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Just 2 more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. All right. Yes. Do you feel regulated and regenerated, Angela and Viola? And I think Robbie's gone. Is John London, are you still here? JR, did you stay for the breathing? Amy? Branya, I think Branya went to sleep. Mama, are you here? Was that you that just messaged me? Angela, Blind Brian, I know he left. All right, y'all. Well, I hope you're going to have a fabulous night, rest of your night. You are very welcome. You are very welcome. Thank you. Good night to you, Angela. Much love and many blessings to you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you all being here. And if you subscribed tonight, or if you subscribed back then, I thank you so much. John London, you are here. Thank you. Thank you. So you all have a great night. John London, I hope you're going to be able to get you some regenerated rest. Yes, take care. Good night, Amy. Good night, JR. All right, good night, John London. I'll see y'all on Wednesday morning if you're here Wednesday morning. If not, I'll see y'all Friday night at 6 o'clock, like this night, 6 p.m. Central Standard, or Friday or Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard. Okay, y'all sleep well. Thank you. You have a lovely night too, John London. I appreciate it. Okay, I will give Grinch. Grinch, are you not going to come say hi to people? Grinchy, come here. You want me to tap? Let me see if I can get Grinch to come tell y'all good night. What if I start tapping, Grinch? You see that? See, there he is. He was flying around the house earlier. Y'all see that? Everybody says good night, Grinch. Say good night. All right. Good night, y'all.